from CNN.com.
Yes. Yeah.
Thousands protest as Italy's COVID pass becomes mandatory for workers. They say anyone who is on a payroll in the public or private sector must have a green pass with a QR code as proof of either full vaccination, recent recovery from infection, or a negative test within the previous 48 hours. Employees who go to work without the pass risk a fine of up to 1,500 euros, $1,730, and suspension without pay. Employers could also face fines if they allow staff to work without it. Wow.
Yeah.
That's it's substantially worse than here in the U.S.
Exactly. And the way that they implemented this was really sinister because in Italy, talk of like a COVID vaccine passport, it was first deemed a conspiracy theory. It's crazy. It's not going to happen here. And then they started to implement it with restaurants and indoor dining. Then they started to implement it with travel, trains, buses, planes. Can't get on any of those if you don't have the green pass. And now their latest rule here, I don't even want to say rule. Their latest decree here by the Italian government is that you can't work in the public sector or private sector if you don't have a green pass. If you don't have a QR code that says the government allows you to work. And if you do work, you get a fine of 1,500 euros. And you need a vaccine to be compliant every 6 months with this, quote, green pass, or a test every 48 hours, which is unfeasible.
So
Gary, you had something to say?
I got a question. Yeah. So what's the option if you say no to all this? You're going to jail. You're getting fined till
1,500 euro fine for going to work and not having a green pass.
Here's the best part. In the United States, if you are fired because you didn't get vaccinated and there was a mandate, it's considered a voluntary resignation.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
It's insult and injury.
And in many states like New York, you lose unemployment benefits. So nurses that get kicked to the curb literally have to find another job right away to make sure that they could even pay the bills. So we're in phase 2. Italy went through phase 3 and 4. We're seeing a lot of countries implement the same policies, only on different timelines, but they're doing the same thing.
It's coming.
It's already here. Los Angeles has some of the most strictest COVID-19 vaccine passports that they're going to be implementing. CNN has been cheerleading it, saying it's awesome, it's great. Getting permission slips from the government for every basic activity is so awesome. The same government that runs the DMV. Yeah, I definitely trust those people to have a domestic permission slip passport system. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's insane, and people are standing up to this. People are protesting in mass. I've been tweeting out photos that show huge amounts of people. There's also some fake photos. There's some disinformation going around, but I'm trying to confirm a lot of this. I have some people in Italy that I'm talking to, but now unions, dock workers are coming together and they're doing a, quote, indefinite blockade of the ports in Italy, with them saying, we're going to block this until you get rid of this domestic passport permission slip system. So it's going to be a very interesting showdown and clash that we're going to see unfold in Italy in just a few moments from now.
It needs to happen soon because, as you guys know, that once they implement this stuff, it doesn't get unimplemented. Yeah. It's done.
It's expanded.
There's no deadline. There's no deadline. They're not going to say, hey, if everyone is free of COVID, we're going to get rid of this. Or if 90% or 80%. They usually do this. You can't tell someone to sacrifice for something that has no end to it.
This is why we're setting up Freedamastan.
There needs to be a Freedamastan in every state. And you're setting this up West Virginia?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Is there?
It's
other
not like it's going to be an
Freedamastans?
actual big city or anything, but we're going to have a lot of space. So there's going to be a big communal aspect to it where people can come and, we're sorting it out. We're going to be growing our own food. We're going to be doing a lot of sustainable living stuff. Ian's going to build his free dome, geodesic dome. We're going to try and do things in the most environmentally friendly and economically friendly way to be like self-sufficient, because look, man, it's the Great Reset. It's coming, right? They want you to own nothing and be happy. Well, as long as you have some land and the ability to produce some of your own stuff, then you'll at least own some stuff. And if the supply chains are breaking down, what I'm really interested in is, what can we make in Freedamastan? What can we get out of the ground? What can we build ourselves? Luke's talking about trade routes and stuff. Can we get metals and things like that and then start doing construction or even like sourcing raw materials, things like that? Ian's talking about pulling carbon from the air to make graphene. Maybe this sparks the graphene revolution because we can't get iron anymore. Who knows?
You can pull the carbon dioxide out of the air, then deposit it onto like a copper palladium alloy at like 1,000 degrees centigrade, and it'll deposit graphene oxide. That's one way to do it. There's other methods too. You can take rubber trash and then hit it, called flash graphene, where you pulse it with lasers and then turn it into a fine layer of graphene that requires a lot of electricity.
And lasers.
We need to figure out how to
that.
generate a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Locally,
your
like
own little
geothermal or something.
Giant hamster
or
wheel.
nuclear.
Ian runs in it.
little mini nuclear plant.
Yeah.
It sounds much better than the Chad, for sure. It does.
It's solutions. If we just stare at the problem like this all day, every day, we're all going to go insane, and then it's going to end. So we have to fix it.
Yeah.
It's funny. They set up the autonomous zone in these cities just by trying to steal land or whatever. They're colonizing.
Yeah.
What do? We rightfully negotiate a treaty for settlement on this here land, and then set up our autonomous zone. It's not an autonomous zone. We're just like a normal place with like business.
No, it sounds like it's weird. We were talking earlier about things flipping. We're seeing people on the right. I don't know. I want to say too conservative, like thinking about communes and going on their own, which it's good. There's always been the preppers as well. To be fair. And we have to do this soon. We have to think about these things soon. So one thing, when I talk about it on my channel, I've been talking about it for a long time, is, nobody's going to come and save us. Like, nobody's coming in. Trump ain't going to sweep in and fix everything, even if he wins in 2 years. The midterm elections might be a slap on the wrist, but right now they're all in on this. Most of the government is in on this. They're just playing their stupid game, and they're resetting on us. And there's stuff I'd love to say, but I didn't want to say it, on your channel, when we were talking about earlier, and I won't say it here, but, until we decide we are going to end this, those rules, like I said, are implemented. They're implemented. They're not going away ever. And now this word mandate is just part of our language now, and we're completely cool with it. So we went from emergency provisions mandating that people stay at home for a couple of weeks to Gavin Newsom mandating what a business can sell on a toy aisle,
That's why we chose West Virginia. You could choose New Hampshire, Florida, Texas. I think Texas is too dense, and that means it's susceptible to, leftist manipulations and things like that for a variety of reasons. What happens, we see this in West Virginia, where there will be like a gun range, a shooting range, and it's noisy. There actually is one up, not too far from here. It's a public land where people go shooting. You're not supposed to use it as a range, apparently, but people do hunting training or something. All the neighbors can hear the gunshots all day, every day, and they're fine with it. But liberals are starting to move in from D.C. because they want to get away from the nightmare they created and go to West Virginia, where it's conservative. When they move in, they're told, when you buy this property, you sign this disclosure acknowledging there's a shooting range, on the other side of the street, which presents some dangers, risks, and a noise issue. But you accept these things when you move in. And they say, yeah, no problem. Then they tell their friends to move in and say, once we get enough people, we can vote to shut down their range. And that's what's been happening. Things like that. There was like a farm that had like a dairy farm, and it was stinky. And so people moved in, and they were like, you acknowledge there's a farm here. The smell is, something that people are concerned about. They said, no problem. Once they sold all the land around it, the people voted and said, shut the farm down. And then all of a sudden you own this land, and they're like, sorry. The cops come in and say, the people have spoken. And then you can't run your business anymore. That's what you got to watch out for. That's why I'm worried about, Texas, because it's happening in West Virginia too. Now that's because West Virginia, people don't know this, is about an hour from DC. It's not that far away from DC. So New Hampshire might be a good idea, but then New Hampshire is, I think New Hampshire, what it has going for it is a free state project, which is protecting it and expanding the freedom. West Virginia has the inverse problem. They have a lot of people trying to come into the eastern part. That being said, though, West Virginia has lost a ton of liberals from the other more urban cities. So I think West Virginia is a good bet. New Hampshire is probably, I think in the long term, we're actually looking at setting up shop in some capacity in New Hampshire. So maybe buying a small piece of land. That way we have a place to be in New Hampshire in the event the Free State Project becomes very prominent. Because as long as I've been telling Luke nonstop, like New Hampshire is
How
a great
dare
place.
you? Blasphemy.
That's a lie.
Blasphemy. I've been screaming about New Hampshire forever. I've been sending you property there a few weeks ago.
Luke sends me
I was
Zillow posts.
I'm like, dude, this is good right here. Because there's already a Freedom Stand there. There's a great guy called Jay Noon. He could fix and build everything. He's been teaching me pretty much doing man camp, which he does, and he helps people figure out how to get out of the cities and learn to actually be self-reliant. He's a great guy, Jay Noon, if you haven't heard of him. Great, awesome part of the Free State Project. But he has his own Freedamastan in New Hampshire.
I want to build a forge.
Yeah, and there's a lot of freedom in New Hampshire, and a lot of opportunity. So I love it there. I go there for the summers, Florida for the cold winters, and of course I'm here with you guys for the foreseeable future.
Texas is doing all right.
Yeah.
It's really dense,
so
though.
far.
And you got that border problem, right? These people flooding in through the border is a big risk to Texas in terms of maintaining, their sovereignty.
California.
Yeah, no, California was fine 20 years ago. California was fine. Like when I was growing up, thinking about like San Diego was a right-wing military town, and Los Angeles was pretty centrist. San Francisco was always weird, but it never ran the state. Now it runs the state, and now we've seen what happened like Las Vegas. They had these like crazy mask mandates, and I was just like, God, gangsters used to run this town. I was just there. I'm like, it's so conforming, and it was kind of a turnoff. And then Arizona's the same way. So I wouldn't be surprised if Texas flips, if Florida flips. It just depends on what county you're in.
They're
at this
close.
point.
So Texas and Florida are like teetering between left and right. Now, there's been some big changes, like on the border, it went Republican. Miami went Republican. West Virginia is the second most Trump-supporting state in the country. And so I'm like, I like it. New Hampshire is good, but I think in order to get a good space, you got to be like, you got to be kind of far away from the urban center. Mm-hmm. Whereas here, we get West Virginia. We're in the tri-state area, but we're setting up Freedamastan in West Virginia, and it's like an hour and a half to the airport. So you still get a big urban center airport, not too far away, but not too close. We weighed a lot of options. I mean, I was looking at northern Maine. I was like, I'll take what I can get, but satellite internet it's not going to cut it, and bringing people out to the middle of nowhere is too difficult. We looked at rural Pennsylvania. That would have been awesome. I really wanted to like find like a dying town and bring industry back and just like get more jobs and stuff. But maybe we'll do that with the Freedamastan area, and more people will find jobs, and more industry will grow, and we'll be investing continually in the space to build stuff and set up a business. Luke wants to get his own, have his own gun shop, so
that would be fun. And a training facility, and growing
CQC.
our own food.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Owning a shop was brilliant. It was the most freedom I've ever had, well, except working on a YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. It's great. Being your own boss is that's the American dream, and you don't need to be rich. I never made a ton of money at the comic store. I was so freaking happy for most of it. And I'm happy now, except for the world falling apart around us. I'm happy. It's hard to work out in my head sometimes, but yeah, I guess the only problem I had about moving out of California was finding internet. I mean, that was, like you said, satellite internet's not going to cut it. So I'm going to have it put in myself.
Yeah, that's what we did here.
Like you have, if you go too far out, there's no way you're going to get it. That's the only problem, because I would love to be out in the middle of nowhere near a city, not even within 100 miles.
Yep.
But that's not an option right now. There's still a ton of country. I mean, Texas is cheap. That's even now, like compared to California, everything's cheap. So
yeah. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.